Hey gamers, welcome to my game room. AJ from Rolling With Roc here. It's Wednesday, ROCtober 7th, and we are continuing the countdown to number 1 of my top 67 board games of all time with numbers 55 through 51. Just a couple of reminders before we get into the list. Remember, this is ROCtober and I'm releasing new content every Monday through Saturday here on my YouTube channel. And then on Sunday nights, I am streaming over on Twitch. Also, these are, of course, my opinions on games that I have played. There are many games that I haven't played, and there are some games that I just don't like. So if you're not seeing a certain game, I do apologize, but these are my thoughts on games that I've played. If there's games that you think I should check out, please go ahead and put them in the comments below, and that will also get you entered into ROCtober's contest, Board Game Trick or Treat. One comment per video is one entry in Board Game Trick or Treat for you for every video labeled ROCtober. Lastly, it is ROCtober. I am celebrating my 1-year anniversary of content creation here on YouTube. Everybody who's supported me thus far, I really do appreciate it. Thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. You can help me grow by subscribing to this channel, leaving likes, leaving comments, and the most important thing is sharing with your friends. If you can please spread the word of this channel and all the content that I am making, it helps me a bunch. If this is the first video of the top 67 that you're seeing, you can go back and watch the others in the playlist. You can let others know about these videos. It helps me a ton. And then you can also follow me over to the Twitch channel, twitch.tv/rollingwithroc, where every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern I am streaming board games, and then every once in a while I'm just going to be popping up in random streams playing Among Us or other board game and video game content. With all of that out of the way, let's get right back into the list with number 55. Number 55 is a tableau building worker placement game of woodland critters living under the Evertree. And that is Everdell from Starling Games. In Everdell, you take control of a species of woodland critters that you place on the different worker placement spots on the board to get twigs and berries, these really good quality components in this game. And then you play cards that have beautiful art by my favorite artist in board gaming, Andrew Bosley, to build up your tableau, to give you more powers, to earn more resources. And each time you go through a different season here on the Evertree, you can get another critter for your group. So you build up your whole tableau using your worker placement in different rounds. You can sometimes go into the same place as other people. Sometimes you can only go into one spot, so you have to choose on where you're going to go. It has some variability with the actions that you can take. And it is a game that when we first got it, we played it a lot. I have not played it in a while, so that might be a reason why it's here at 55. If I played it again more recently, maybe it would have been a little bit higher on the list. But that's just kind of the nature of these things. But right now, this is a good game. I'm really bad at saying what the weight of games is. I would say it's kind of in the medium range, but I could be wrong on that. But yeah, I do enjoy it. And like I said, it has one of my favorite things about the entire game is the art. Any game that has art from Andrew Bosley is a game that I at least want to look at because I love his art style. But yes, that is number 55, Everdell from Starling Games. Number 54. In number 54, we are sticking with the worker placement mechanism. However, this time we are fulfilling contracts of wine as we tend to our vineyards in Tuscany. That is, of course, Viticulture. This is the Essential Edition from Stonemaier Games. In Viticulture, you are the owner of a vineyard, and you are growing different types of grapes, turning them into wine, and selling them to your customers ultimately for victory points. It is a worker placement game. You play in the just the Essential Edition, not using Tuscany, you play over 4 seasons, but there's only 2 seasons of worker placement. When you add Tuscany, you add 2 other seasons of worker placement, and you can see my reviews for both just Viticulture, the Essential Edition, and Tuscany here on the channel. I did reviews for both of those games. I like Viticulture. For me, Tuscany, it adds a lot of stuff, and I know like almost everybody says it's an essential expansion, but for me, it made it, I like lighter games, and it made it a little bit too complicated and a little too much going on at one time with the 4 seasons versus the 2. So this just, Viticulture is my preferred way to play the Viticulture system, and I really like this game. I was very excited to finally get a copy of this. We sat down and we played it a bunch once we got it, and it was very enjoyable. If you like any sort of worker placement games, this is one of the better ones. Worker placement isn't necessarily my top mechanism. I just had 2 back-to-back, and we're in the 50s at the moment, which 50 out of how many board games is still really, really good. They're just not at the very top of my list. But overall, if you like worker placement games, you will more than likely like Viticulture from Stonemaier Games. That's number 54. Number 53. Number 53 also has an aspect of worker placement to it, but in this game you are building a grand library, and you must make sure that all of your books in your library are in alphabetical order, and the shelves are stable so that they do not collapse, and that you have a variety of books in your library. And that is Ex Libris from Renegade Games. In Ex Libris, like I said, you are building a library. You do have an aspect of worker placement, but it's much less pronounced than in Everdell and in Viticulture. This game is a lot more about building your tableau of cards in front of you, which is your library. And each card has a letter of the alphabet and a couple of books on it, ranging from, I believe, 2 to 4. And those books all have wonderfully clever names on them. Some are very punny, some are very thoughtful or just funny in general, but every card is unique from what I know, and they are all very, very well done. And so you have to put your cards in order, and each letter has a certain number of cards. So like A may have 6 different A cards, and you would have to put them in, if you had multiple A's, you'd have to make sure that A3 is before A6 in your library, or you would not be able to place that. And then you can build up to 3 rows high in your library, but you want to make sure that you have shelf stability. You don't want to have one really long row at the top and have 2 skinny rows on the bottom. And then there are different classifications of books, just like there are in a regular library in this fantasy setting, and you have to meet certain goals depending on what the goals of that particular game are. So this is a fun game. I've only actually played it a couple of times, but I've really liked the times that we have played it. I would like to get it back to the table soon. It has a fantasy, magic-y library element to it, and it has a lot of tropes of fantasy as the characters that you can be in the game, and some other ones. Like one of your assistants in the library can be the gelatinous cube, which is just funny to me. But that is Ex Libris from Renegade Games in at number 53. Number 52. In at number 52, we are continuing with the mechanisms of hand management, tableau building, and worker placement. But this time, we are an ancient civilization trying to build up our empire in Imperial Settlers from Portal Games. In Imperial Settlers, you take control of an ancient civilization like Egypt or Rome, and you have an empire. You have a central tile that has 3 rows, and you can build on either side of that row with different types of cards. Each row represents a different type of card, and then you take your workers to activate those buildings. You have to sometimes build foundations and then build a building on top of that, and each civilization in the game has unique powers and a different deck of cards and plays differently. So no 2 games of Imperial Settlers will be quite alike depending on the combination of civilizations being used. There are expansions for Imperial Settlers, and this game even has a couple of spin-off games like the Imperial Settlers Roll and Write that I've already covered on this series, and another game that will be even further up on this list. But here at number 52 is Imperial Settlers from Portal Games. Number 51. At number 51, we are finally leaving the world of worker placement, but we are joining the world of J.R.R. Tolkien and going to Middle-earth in The Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. In Lord of the Rings, the card game, you and your company of heroes will take control of 3 separate characters each, and they come from 4 spheres of influence. Only resources that are granted to that sphere of influence can purchase cards from your hand with that influence icon on it. The aspect of this game is you build your deck prior to the game and then shuffle it up, similar to a game of like Pokemon or Magic, and then you draw cards from the top of your deck, and you have to be able to play them into the game using those resource tokens. However, the resource tokens are few and far between many times in this game, and there are always many, many enemies. This is just the base box of the game. Being a LCG from Fantasy Flight, there is an innumerable amount of content for this game. My game group has most of the content up for until about a year ago. Anything within about the last year, I do not have. But everything prior to that, even including like promo packs from Gen Con and different things like that, we do have. And it is a ton of content. This is right here, this is an empty box because we have to store it in separate storage containers, big, long baseball card boxes and nice zipper bags to keep this game in one place. But it is an extremely difficult but very, very fun and thematic game. The stories that are told in The Lord of the Rings, the card game, are straight out of the pages of Tolkien and inspired by those. They do going even beyond those stories. There is a saga campaign where you can play the stories of the Lord of the Rings novels, but there's also so many other things that are inspired by the writing one way or another that you can also play. And you can use different combinations of heroes, so you can have one team can be Legolas, Gimli, and Aragorn, or you could have Elrond and Arwen and Eowyn, and there's tons of different characters that most fans of even Lord of the Rings probably have never even heard of before. It is a cooperative game. With the base box, you can play 1 or 2 players. To play 3 or 4 players, you do need to buy a second base box for the rest of the content. And that is something that was kind of iffy for us, but we play at 3 players, so we did it. And ultimately, we don't regret it because we have gotten a ton of playtime in this. The game is hard, and then they make nightmare decks, and I don't know why. Maybe there's players out there who are much better than our game group, which is fine, or just like to really challenge themselves, but this is a game that you will lose. Each scenario, you will probably lose once or twice before you beat the scenario. And that's because you have to play it find out what you're going against, and then go back and rebuild your deck so that you know to put in the correct cards. And every scenario is different. You can't just have one overall deck that is good against everything. Because sometimes you're going to want to be fighting more. Sometimes you're going to want to be questing more. And different cards will do that better. But ultimately, the Lord of the Rings, the card game, the LCG by Fantasy Flight Games, is a lot of fun. I do have a new LCG in my collection that is definitely inspired by this game because it's also from Fantasy Flight, which is called Marvel Champions. But that game did not make this list yet. I've only played it a couple times, and even though I'm a huge fan of both Marvel and the Lord of the Rings, and I probably am a slightly more fan of Marvel, this game had a lot more story aspects to it so far. I'm looking forward to more content from Marvel Champions. I mean, it has a long way to catch up to this game. This has been out since, I believe, 2011. So there's a long way to go from now because Marvel Champions just came out. But overall, both games are fun. But for my LCG listing here in my top 67 games, I have gone with the Lord of the Rings, the card game from Fantasy Flight Games at number 51. Now it's time to recap this video. At number 55, we had Everdell from Starling Games. Number 54 was Viticulture from Stonemaier Games. Number 53 was Ex Libris from Renegade Game Studios. Number 52 was Imperial Settlers from Portal Games. And number 51 was The Lord of the Rings, the card game from Fantasy Flight Games. So that will do it for this installment of my top 67 games of all time. Tomorrow on Thursday will be the first unboxing of ROCtober, where I will be opening up Tiny Epic Dinosaurs from Gameland Games. And then on Friday we will continue this series with numbers 50 through 46. And on Saturday, we will be doing an unboxing with Remy as we open up another Haba game. If you have missed any portions of ROCtober so far, at the end of this video, there will be a link to the entire ROCtober playlist that you can go ahead and check out. Remember to leave comments down below to be entered into Board Game Trick or Treat that I will be giving away games at the end of this month. If there's anybody out there that would like to be involved in Board Game Trick or Treat in any way, please send me an email at rollingwithroc@gmail.com. Go ahead and follow me on my socials at Instagram and Twitter. And remember to check out all my content here on YouTube and Twitch. I just recently became a Twitch affiliate this week, and I'm very, very excited about that. I am hoping that we will continue to grow my Twitch community, and I would love for you to join us over there sometime on Sunday nights. Thank you all once again for joining me. I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. And this was AJ from Rolling With Roc, and you are watching ROCtober.